The Bookbinder's Manual. Forwarding. After the binder has received the work and ascertained whether it is to be boarded or bound, he commences with folding. Footnote. This is usually performed by females. For scale of charges, see appendix. End footnote. The beauty of the book greatly depends on this part of forwarding. For unless the sheets be folded perfectly even, it is impossible the margin of the book, when cut, can be uniform in the different pages. We must not omit to observe that number publications must invariably be refolded, and if there are plates attached, they should for the present be left out. There is no great difficulty in folding the sheets with accuracy, if care be taken to place the folio of the one page on the folio of the other. It should also be seen that the foot of each page exactly correspond, which may be done with merely a glance of the eye. It is almost needless to observe that the signature should be always kept uppermost. In fact, folding is so remarkably simple that no further mention of it is necessary. We shall therefore proceed to the next process, which is that of beating. Footnote. Beating is now generally superseded by a comparatively new invention termed the rolling press. See appendix. End footnote. Previous to describing this, it may be observed that the introduction of machinery within these few years has proved exceedingly prejudicial to good binding. For, generally speaking, works struck off by these machines will not stand sufficient beating to bring the books to that solidity which good binding requires. Indeed, this kind of printing, and number publications in general, will take little more than a good pressing, which, in fact, is always sufficient for such works as have been hot-pressed. The same may also be observed of boarded books, which should never be more than firmly pressed previous to sewing. But such books as are intended for the process of beating require a large stone, with a smooth surface, and a hammer, somewhat in the shape of a bell, weighing from 12 to 14 pounds. Having these in readiness, the books are beat in the following manner. About a dozen sheets, or sections, are held at a time between and near the ends of the fingers and thumb of the left hand, while with the right hand the hammer is raised about a foot, and must fall with rather more than its own weight on the edges of the sections, which should be continually moved round, turned over, and changed, in order that they may be equally beat. During this process, the sections should be occasionally examined, to ascertain whether they have set off. If such be the case, further beating must be discontinued. If the work have cuts, a leaf of tissue paper should be placed between these and the letterpress. The plates of extra books should never be beat, and cold-pressed and recently printed works should be beat only once round the folds on each side. If the latter be extra work, and more beating be really necessary, the foredge must be cut open, and a piece of tissue paper placed between each page. The work is next to be collated, and the plates, if any, to be placed in their respective places. It is then to be taken to the standing press, and divided into an equal number of sections. These are placed in different directions in the press, in order that they may have an equal pressing. But if there are several books of the same thickness, they will require no division, as each book can then be arranged in the same way as if divided into sections. The press should be screwed down as tight as possible, and after the book has remained in it a proper time, it should be taken out. when, if there are plates to it, they should be pasted in, agreeably to the directions usually accompanying the work. If the book have insets, and these have more margin at the head than the remainder of the sheet, the extra portion should now be cut off with the shears, otherwise the heads will not knock up straight. The sections must be again examined to see that they follow each other agreeably to the signatures. The waste leaves are then to be added at the beginning and end. The book is next placed between the knuckles of the thumbs and ends of the fingers, and in this position the head is knocked on a level surface to bring the sections straight with each other. The back is next levelled in the same way, after which one side of the book is laid on a pressing board, the size of the book itself, beyond which the back must project about an inch. And on the uppermost side another pressing board must be laid, corresponding in position and size with the one beneath. The two boards must now be tightly nipped with the left hand, and the book carefully lowered in the press, when, being screwed tight, it is ready for sawing the backs. For this purpose a tenant saw is used, and the marks should be made deep enough to allow the cord to fall in level with the back. Footnote: for 12s it should be rather thicker than twine, for octavos still thicker, and for quartos and folios the size increases. If the work be in half sheets, the cord should be thinner than for whole sheets. End footnote. It is usual first to make a saw mark at the head and foot of the book, for what are termed the catch stitches, and from these the distances of the other saw marks are measured. For 12s, the saw marks should be about an inch from the head, and about an inch and a half from the foot. But for octavos, the distance should be greater, and for quartos and folios it still increases. We shall here state the number of bands the different-sized work should be sewn on, which, of course, is a guide for sawing the back, independent of the mark for the catch-stitch. 32 mo, common, 2 bands. If extra, 3 bands. Half sheet, 18 mo, 4 bands, wide in the middle. Half sheet, 12 mo, octavo, and 2-leaf quarto, 4 bands, wide in the middle. Whole sheet 12 mo, common, 3 bands. Octavo, extra, 4 bands, equal distance. Royal octavo, 5 bands, equal distance. Whole sheet quarto, 5 bands. Folio, 5, 6, and 7 bands. The saw marks being thus made, they should be opened by working the folding stick backwards and forwards through them. The book is then ready for sewing. Footnote: usually the occupation of females. For scale of charges, see appendix. End footnote. The bands are now arranged in the sewing press, agreeably to the saw marks, with the exception of the catch-stitch, in the back of the book, and screwed tight. On one corner of the press is placed a little paste, which is used as occasion may require for pasting the fly-leaves to the sections. Footnote: these need be only parted, or may be sewn on, as best suits the convenience of the binder. End footnote. And also such leaves as may be torn, but before commencing sewing it may be as well to observe that the thread must not be drawn too tight at the head and foot, and that the back must be kept equally swelled. The back of the book being placed towards the person, and the title side uppermost, the fly-leaf is first sewn on as follows. The needle is first put through the catch-stitch mark on the right-hand side with the right hand and pulled through with the left, leaving about 4 inches of the thread undrawn through, and with the same hand put through the head side of the band. Being drawn through with the right hand, it is now put through, close to the band, on the other side, and again drawn through with the left. With the same hand, the needle is now put through close to the head side of the next band, and, being drawn through with the right hand, is passed through close to the other side of the band, which is drawn through by the left hand, by which it is put through the catch-stitch mark. A little paste is now rubbed along the edge of the fly-leaf, but on no other sections unless torn. The first section of the work is then placed on the bands, ready for sewing. The needle is first put through the catch-stitch mark with the right hand and drawn through with the left, and by the same hand put through close to the band on the side next the tail of the page, and, being drawn through with the right hand, with the left the corner of the top half of the section is folded down. Footnote: it is better, perhaps, to sew the first and last sections of a work entirely through, and turn down the third and following. End footnote. The next section is then taken up, and the band being placed in the saw marks, the needle is put through on that side the band next the head of the book. It is then brought out on the left-hand side of the band, and passed through the section turned down on the right-hand side of the band, and brought out on the catch-stitch mark of the same section. The end of the thread left, and the remainder in the needle is now tied in a knot. The other sections are proceeded with in the same manner, sewing backwards and forwards, the thread being fastened through the catch-stitches of each preceding section, and every alternate one being turned down and taken up as above described. But it must here be observed that music books, and those which require frequent opening, should be sewn over every band, the above method being too slight for works of this description. Footnote: after unbound music has been long in use, it frequently becomes torn at the back. When this is the case, it is necessary to cut an equal portion from each leaf with a knife and straight edge. About 6 leaves must then be closely whipped together, and the book be sewn on raised bands, as sawing the back would cut the stitches. End footnote. For still greater strength, books are sometimes sewn on more bands than already mentioned. When this is the case, the additional bands are not drawn through the covers, but are cut off, after gluing, close to the edges of the back. Having sewn the book according to the strength required, it is perhaps unnecessary to say that a number of the same size may be sewn at one time in the press, until, in fact, it be 3 parts full. The strings are then cut at the top of the press, and unfastened at the bottom. The books are now divided from each other, and the bands cut apart, allowing an end of about 2 inches on either side. This being done, the next consideration is gluing the backs. This is done by holding the book in the left hand, and drawing the brush up and down with the right. If there be a number ready sewn, they should each be glued separately, and placed one above another to dry, with the foredge of one towards the back of the other. They should not be dried by the fire, as that would cause the folds to start, and deprive the glue of its strength. The next thing necessary, after the back is dry, is to scrape and open the bands. If it be intended merely to put the book in boards, it is now ready for that purpose, and we shall proceed to describe the way in which that is done.